Welcome to My Morning Cup, a podcast produced by Costa Media Advisors and presented by Rockpoint Bank and EPB. Rockpoint Bank, from Chattanooga for Chattanooga. And EPB, get EPB's fiber optics for the world's fastest community-wide internet. I'm Mike Costa, your host. My guest this week is Dr. Reginald Smith. Dr. Smith is the president and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Chattanooga, a leading nonprofit focused on empowerment and equity. Reggie, before I get into a discussion with you about the best barbecue in Memphis, let me ask, what's in your morning cup?
Well, this morning I had a good cup of, I had a latte that I made at home on my brand new espresso machine. So doing good.
Well, when you started out with I had a good cup, I knew you weren't talking about the one I just tried to make you on my failing Keurig machine.
Yeah, no, I was blessed to have one before I got here. So.
Yeah, and I think blessed is probably the correct word there after looking at what I made you. So an espresso machine, how long you had that?
Literally 3 days.
Really?
Well, about 4 or 5 days, yeah. I was on the internet, saw one for, relatively inexpensive, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to try it. I'm tired of going to Starbucks, spending $5 or $6. I can make this at home. Yeah. And I think it was probably the best investment.
Really?
I don't know how long I'm going to continue to play with it. It takes a little time every morning, but at the same time, I enjoy sitting there with my wife looking at me, shaking her head, like, what is he doing? But I get to play barista at home.
Oh, that's great. Well, welcome. I appreciate you coming in and doing the podcast with us. And I know you and I had a little bit of time to get to know each other a little bit a few weeks back. Mm-hmm. You're the new director of the Urban League of Chattanooga. How long have you been in that position now?
So I've been in that position, since August 11th of last year. So
okay,
right
so
about
not quite
9
a
months
year.
or so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll have a lot to talk about that, but we want to really just find out more about you. As I always tell everyone, I always like to start at the beginning. You were born and raised in Memphis?
Born and raised Memphis, Tennessee. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And really, truly enjoyed my time there. Came here in Chattanooga at the ripe old age of 18 to attend the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga.
A lot of West Tennesseans, a lot of Memphians make that trek now. So talk a little bit about growing up in Memphis. Your parents, what they did, and kind of the influences you had growing up, and then kind of want to get into your high school years.
Okay, sounds good. So I was blessed to grow up in a household of people who really, truly valued education. And so my mom started out kind of in the banking industry and got into, insurance sales and things of that nature. And my father was a financial advisor. And so they really kind of instilled in me at a very early age in, focusing on figuring out what I'm going to do next and making sure that I have the education to match that. My grandparents were a very big part of my life. My grandmother's a master's degree trained educator. All of my great aunts were educators back in Memphis. So for me, education was something I really couldn't get away from.
Right.
But I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. Because, I look at my parents, I didn't know what they did. I didn't know what a financial advisor was. I just looked at my dad as, he's a businessman. I want to grow up and wear a shirt and tie like him every day.
He came home from work, not sure what he did.
Exactly. He was, I wear a shirt and tie, take it off, had his little briefcase and the big cell phone back in the day.
Yeah, the brick.
And so, and I'm like, I want to do something, I guess, like that. But as I was getting ready to graduate, he changed up a little bit.
Yeah.
He started a nonprofit organization.
Oh, which one?
So he started an organization in Memphis called Our Loving Hearts.
Okay.
And the premise of it was fairly simple. He, as a financial advisor, he was going out and talking to people, but he had a passion for talking to young people, primarily those young men who were, under 18, but incarcerated, which opened the door for him to connect with their families. And one of the things is he was going and talking to some of these families, he was noticing that they didn't have beds to sleep on. So really simple problem, right?
Yeah.
Children don't have beds to sleep on. Well, let me just connect with the business community in Memphis and figure out, how do I get children who don't have beds? So he created this Beds for Kids program, and it was really, really unique because at this point in time, I'm in middle school and high school. I didn't understand. But I was able to see he had a passion for something that wasn't his career.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't making him any money. He just knew that people deserved this common decency of sleeping on a bed at night.
Yeah.
And so that really kind of inspired me to, look beyond just being just a businessman, right?
And I think most people would be shocked at the number of kids who don't have their own bed, or either are sleeping on a couch, sleeping on the floor, or sleeping in a bed with 3 or 4 siblings.
Exactly. And like, we talk about and document, the unhoused population.
Yeah.
But how many people are literally, in a location but are sleeping on the floor or sleeping in the bed with multiple siblings? And that historically is not necessarily a thing that it's necessarily frowned upon, right? I mean, we all have stories of our grandparents living with, they 8 siblings and in one bed in a 2-bedroom, 2-room suite. Right. And that's what, that's that grit of being an American,
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are children who are, in certain circumstances that need, something as simple as a bed.
Well, and you look at trying to learn in school, and if you're coming to school and you hadn't slept all night because your siblings got their elbow in your face. And
yeah, I mean, it definitely has, effects that are down the line. Yeah.
So where'd you go to high school in Memphis?
So I went to high school at Ridgeway High School in Memphis, Tennessee. And I'll definitely say that was another one of those really formative things for me. I talk to people and people say things like, oh, I just hated high school and I just this and this. And I'm like, high school was some of the best years of my life. I learned who I was. I learned what sports I like. I also learned what sports I didn't like. Yeah. I was able to participate in multiple different activities. And to me, it was really formative and helped create, I guess, who I thought I was.
Talk about some of those sports and some of those activities that you focused on, and even the ones you didn't like. But what kind of sports did you play, and what kind of extracurriculars really had an effect on you moving forward in your life?
All right, so that was my first experience with tennis, and I'm like, okay, great, tennis, okay, I can do. Tried football, realized I don't like getting hit. That's not my thing. All right, tried playing basketball. Basketball was not my thing, right? So, but what I really engaged in more so, I was part of the Model UN. Right? I realized that at that point, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I need to be a diplomat. I like talking.
Yeah.
Right. As well as I was a part of an organization that I would love to see, happen here too. There was an organization called Facing History in Ourselves, and it really focused in on us understanding the nuances of, the Holocaust and how that affected American history, as well as we were focusing on, how that related to the civil rights struggle in Memphis. And so I really loved being a part of that. I was a part of a group known as Bridge Builders.
I remember Bridge Builders.
Yeah, Bridge Builders is a really great organization out of Bridges, USA, where it takes children from all across the city of Memphis. And, we spent a week together at the University of Memphis. You kind of have some kumbaya moments, but then we go back into our high schools, right, as these kind of student leaders. And it's a 2-year program that really, truly helps to break down barriers and build bridges amongst the various different kids in the community from every walk of life, from every race, every religion. It's really, really great.
How important do you think that is to really focus on those high school kids for something like Bridge Builders in terms of growing the future?
Well, it's just like the world that we live in, right? So for me, it was good because whereas I went to a pretty diverse school, I went to Ridgeway, right? Like I say, we were, there's about, at the time I was there, 50% African American, about 50% Jewish. Well, that was my first time. I didn't know nothing about Judaism. I didn't know anything about, Jewish people. But having interactions with them, I can have a little bit of a better understanding of differences, right? Some of those people to this day are some of my best friends. Bridge Builders allow for me to connect with people all across the city from other walks of life, from other socioeconomic, groups. It allowed for me to see that the world is different, that people are differences. I mean, people have differences, but at the same time, at the core of who we all are, we're all human. And we can work together, we can talk together, we can solve problems together.
So did you gravitate towards like student government and stuff like that more than, say, football and basketball, obviously?
Very much so. I was a student government guy. I did student government in college. I like to tell people I am the most introverted extrovert you'll ever meet. Yeah. I love being around people for a certain amount of time. And so, yes, I was very much so gravitated toward that. I was also in choir. And if you talk to my friends that are going to listen to this, who are actually a lot of them here in Chattanooga, they tell you, yeah, he joined choir his senior year. I really enjoyed it my senior year, right?
But you joined.
Yeah, but I joined, and I think I excelled at it. I think.
Yeah.
And so it was good.
What's your favorite kind of music to sing?
Okay, so I am definitely into like Broadway musicals.
Yeah.
I know that sounds crazy, but my senior year, we did this whole thing with Miss Saigon. And so now I'm like, okay, I had the soundtrack. I still listen to it on my Apple Music now. I was all into Hamilton. So any of those show tunes, Broadway related stuff, that's if I'm going to be singing something, it's probably going to be around something like that.
Are you a baritone?
No, I'm a tenor.
Are you?
Yeah.
See, I have no musical ear whatsoever. I just know baritone's a little bit deeper. That's about it. What about siblings?
So I have a sister. She's 3 years younger than me. And if you talk to my parents, they'll tell you my childhood growing up, it was like, it was just me. I was the first, grandchild. I was the, only son. And then 3 years later, they bring her home.
Oh, man. All the attention goes away.
All the attention goes away. And depending on who you talk to, and I always tell her, she's the smart one of the family, right? So she's, if you think I'm driven and I'm pushing forward, that girl's a boundary breaker. I mean, she does so many cool things and is all over the place. And I look up to my little sister.
What does she do now?
So she's an executive with the Walmart Corporation.
Oh, wow.
And she's also created multiple different businesses. And so by training, she's like a food process engineer.
Uh-huh.
Don't ask me what that is. She does something with food and engineering, and which scares me, right?
Yeah.
But she works for Walmart. She pretty much oversees I want to say it's like meat and produce for like the eastern part of the United States, and I can't explain it. I know she worked for Walmart. I know it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And
so you've got a pretty active high school life, and it comes time for college. What's your decision-making process, and how do you end up in Chattanooga?
Well, my decision-making process was fairly simple. My parents were like, great, find an HBCU you want to go to, and go. And my entire family, with the exception of myself and my sister, are HBCU educated. And I'm talking every cousin, my parents, my grandparents. My grandmother's grandmother was a graduate of Lemoyne-On in Memphis.
Oh, wow.
So, so like deep history of, going to historically Black colleges and universities. I was on my way to Howard University. And, I had that conversation with my dad. He was like, we've been planning for this, and, it costs money, and you got your scholarships, and things are great. And for some reason, my mom was like, but look at some in-state options. And by in-state options, she mean, look at the traditional ones in, Tennessee, which meant for me, look at Fisk.
Yeah.
Right. Look at the TSU.
Yeah.
For me, Lane, I didn't want to go to Lane. It's too close to home.
That was in Jackson, right?
That's the one in Jackson. Yeah. Not really the school I wanted to go to, right? But I'm like, okay, Fisk is in Nashville. And so we went on this whole state of Tennessee tour. But it was the first year of the Tennessee Hope Scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 2004. Tennessee Hope Scholarship. You mean to tell me I can go to a Tennessee school for free? And then you mean to tell me I can go to UTC, this little college on the river. I don't know if back in those days, they used to send you a little small DVD in the mail. It's college on the river. And I was like, I never heard of this little small town. They have one stoplight. I don't know nothing about it, Chattanooga. But we came here and we saw the dorms.
Yeah.
After I just left Howard and went to Fisk and saw their dorms.
Those were the new dorms they had just built with the suites and everything.
That was UTC place.
Yeah.
And I got to talking to my friends. There was this young lady that graduated in the class before me. I had a crush on. She went to UTC. So I'm like, yeah, we're going there. And my dad was like, why? And
Can't you see?
Yeah. I'm like, see, I get an apartment. This is, I've been working 12 years for this. And then he was like, no, we're going to Howard. And I was like, all right. I get to go here for free. He was like, what do we sign? So that's how
a financial advisor too.
Yeah, as a financial advisor. He was like, yeah, so you get to go for free? Okay, yeah, that's probably not a bad option, Reggie.
Yeah.
And so to this day, my grandmother still looks at me like Chattanooga, like where'd that come from? And if you ask my parents, they'll tell you it was the best decision I could have ever made and the worst decision I could have ever made because I came to Chattanooga and never came home.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the risk West Tennessee plays with sending their kids here.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a nephew and a great niece who have come to school here and have stayed.
Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful town, beautiful city. And I love Memphis. I'll go back and visit.
Yeah.
I spend time with my parents. But yeah, Chattanooga's home now.
Yeah. And you and I have talked about this. I grew up in Memphis, wasn't born there, but I grew up there and think it's a great city. And I think it gets a bum rap.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about the Memphis and what it means to grow up there, because to me, it's got a different vibe. When you get into Shelby County, know you're in Memphis.
You know you're in Memphis. I like to say the Memphis that I grew up in versus the Memphis that I see on television, right?
Right.
It's just like everywhere else, right? Home is home, the good, the bad, the ugly, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, Memphis had a sense of culture that you don't really see elsewhere in the state, right? We talk about Nashville being the music city. No, Memphis is the music city, right? When you talk about the food capital of Tennessee, yeah, that's Memphis.
Yep.
All right. When you talk about the level of culture and art, and that was the Memphis I grew up in. There wasn't this sense of division that you see elsewhere in the state in Memphis. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, red, orange, green. You all work together. You loved each other. It's a different feeling. I think the bad rap now comes from naturally, poverty, right? Unfortunately, poverty breeds certain sentiments and poverty breeds crime. And so, but how did we get to the level now of the poverty? Well, the Memphis I grew up in, we discussed this. You had a lot more companies and a lot more businesses that were there that allow for opportunities to exist for individuals. I mean, you have FedEx. I mean, that's one of the few places I know, especially for like Memphis, you can graduate from high school, you can go out to the hub and you can have a whole career.
Yep.
Right. And you never leave that company. Right. You're there. We had Firestone, you have International Paper, you have all these wonderful companies that hired people that didn't require all those advanced degrees, which is a good thing because not everybody's going to college. But what happens when, certain companies pull out of the city? Well, you leave a void and it breeds poverty. And so, and it requires a certain level of leadership to identify that and to build programs and to build things to kind of stabilize that. And I think right now you're going to see a resurgence in Memphis. It's just in a stabilization piece time frame. We go through what multiple cities have went through. You look at Detroit. You hear anything about Detroit lately? It's one of the best places in the country to live, right? People have gone there, bought houses for cheap, built lives, built new companies, and it's a resurging city. So it's the ebb and flows of cities, right? New York City in the 1970s was not the place to be.
No, it was going bankrupt and people were leaving.
And so you have that ebb and flow. So I think that right now Memphis is kind of getting a bad rap. I think it's getting better. We have a sports team.
Yep.
I was there at one of the first games in the first season of the Memphis Grizzlies. And, I've seen how that has kind of created something for people to believe in, even though we sometimes belief doesn't translate into a championship, but it gives the city something, right? And so that's the Memphis I remember. That's the Memphis I grew up in.
And when I was growing up in Memphis, that unifying team were the Memphis Tigers.
Oh, yeah.
The basketball team.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, depending on the era, it was either the University of Memphis or Memphis State.
Memphis State.
And so I always joke with people. I was somewhere and I saw it was a Memphis State like hoodie with the tiger jumping out of the M, the old logo, and I'm like, I have to buy.
Gotta
this.
get that.
I gotta buy this. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're both fans of Memphis, but we're here in Chattanooga. Talk a little bit about not just your decision to come here, but once you got here, kind of what you've started to notice about Chattanooga, not just UTC, but the city itself.
So when I got here, like I said, I got here in 2004 to go to college. So my worldview was that of a university, but it was a place where I felt you could pretty much do whatever you wanted to do. If I had a desire to do something, it's connecting with the right people to make it happen. Part of that was also I was connected with university administration. So, I was in student government. I was a freshman senator. I did all those things. So I learned very early on, make connections. But as I stayed around, whereas Memphis had more of a hustler's mentality, right? You have more of it was a certain speed to make things happen. Chattanooga's a little bit more laid back.
Yeah.
And you could go to places that you can get the speed and you can come back home, right? So I could go to Atlanta, get the speed, come back home. I could go to a UT game in Knoxville, get the speed, and then bring myself back to Chattanooga and rest and chill. And so as I started thinking about my next steps in life and where I wanted to train, for a career and where I wanted to do various different things, Chattanooga seemed like a place in which I could be successful, as well as I could, start a family, start a career, and then launch into something else. Well, I kind of launched into staying here, which is, I think, the best decision.
I like the way you put that in terms of if you want the faster pace, you can get to it. Because I've said that for years. The great thing about Chattanooga is where we are.
Yeah.
We're 2 hours from Atlanta, hour and a half from Knoxville, 2 hours from Nashville. If you want those big city amenities, particularly Nashville, Atlanta, you can get there. But you know what? You don't have to deal with all the big city downside because you get to come to come back. You talked a little bit about when you got here, knowing that you had to build relationships?
Right.
That come from your parents?
Probably so. You know what? It's not just, I don't think, not necessarily my parents, more so my great aunt and my grandmother.
Explain that a little.
So my great aunt was the type of person who she knew everybody. And no matter what she wanted to do, she's like, I know a guy. I can go here. I can make and then so whatever room she walks in, she doesn't have to be the center of attention, but she knows everybody in the room.
Yeah.
And everybody knows her. And I was always impressed by that. She was a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, and she pretty much ran AKA World down there in Memphis. And so by merit of that introduced me to a lot of people that she knew. And I mean, these were some extremely important people. And so one of the things that I said I was going to do in life was just to ensure that, all right, you don't have to be the most important person in the room, but you better know who those people are. And so that's kind of a motto I kind of live by now, to where it's, as I kind of move through life, I don't necessarily have to be the person that's in front, but I need to know who the people are that I can connect with to make things happen.
Again, I like the way you put that, in that you don't have to be or feel you're the most important person in the room, because it really is the person like your aunt who's kind of
the great
below the
connector.
radar,
Right.
but connecting everyone and she said that that glue, that cohesion that's bringing everyone together. Is that aunt on your dad's side or your mom's side?
That's on my dad's side.
On your dad's
and
side.
so it's my great aunt Pearl. She actually just passed away.
Oh,
2
sorry
months
to hear
ago.
that.
Thank you. And so like I didn't have any aunts growing up. So my great aunts were my aunts, and so they were my grandmother's sister. So my dad's mom's sisters.
Oh, wow.
And so that was it was pretty cool to have them around me. And once again, master's degree educators, ran the city of Memphis pretty much in that educational world, but we're in those social circles to where I could be connected to things that I didn't know anything about, right? By her being in the organizations that she was in, I was in organizations, right? I think I escorted 2 young ladies and 2 cotillions, and I was in the botillion, and because she was in all of those different social circles. And so by merit of that, my parents were involved in all the stuff, and then I was involved in all the stuff. And so it showed me very early on, it's not about where you're in these things because, that's what you do in society. No, you're in these things because I need to know who you are. You need to know who I am, because that is how the world works to move the world forward for everybody.
Yeah. And that's such an important aspect of it in building those relationships. But you've got your great aunt and understanding how relationships and open doors and things like that. And you come to school in Chattanooga and you don't know anyone, or a few people from Memphis. So how do you begin to adapt?
So my story is a little different with that one. So one, I knew a lot of people when I got here.
Oh, did you?
Because so during that period of time, that was the Tennessee Hope Scholarship stuff. A lot of people came from Memphis. Where most people get a roommate, we were a UTC place. You got to pick your roommates. And my first 3 roommates in my 4-bedroom apartment were people I went to high school with.
Yeah.
So I at least had that group. But Memphis, as large of a city as it is, we were really kind of connected. A lot of bridge builders came, right? Of course, there were people who came from my high school in the previous years before that. And of course, coming up here, my dad, being a member of, Omega Psi Phi, connected me with other people who children are up here. And so though I was coming out of the blue, literally out of the blue from Memphis, there was a kind of a ready built network. But in terms of building my own network, it came time to, join Freshman Senate. Well, that's a great way to connect with, 20 or 30 new people many of whom I've never met before, many of whom, come from different backgrounds. Well, that was my first core group of people to connect with. I joined a few different clubs on campus, which kind of allowed me to break away from my normal circle that I would hang with. But
what's an example of one of those clubs? Because I understand exactly what you're saying. You've got a normal circle, and all of a sudden you go, you know what? I'm running with the same people all the time. Maybe I ought to expand my circle.
So I joined first I joined the Freshman Senate. That was my core group, right? But also, I grew up in Memphis, and I was part of the NAACP Youth Division. So then I came to UTC and joined the Youth and College Division. And so my freshman year, I was actively connected with the NAACP. And that was a really, really cool experience. I joined the Black Student Association. And what else was I a part of? I was a part of some of everything. I don't know how I ended up like in this map reading thing, but it was like a map reading club because
Really?
everybody was like, you take the map reading club, then you take the class because it's an easy A. So I took map reading. But nonetheless, it was some really cool people that I got to do stuff. And we didn't really go into like the woods and map read. It was like urban orienteering. We were downtown with a map, like having to get to where we had to go. It was really good because this was pre-GPS era.
Well, yeah.
And so now it's probably the diminishing skill that I probably don't have anymore. But those were the things that I joined first. But then in the fall of 2005, I was able to pledge Omega. And so for me, that was a big deal because I'm a third generation member. My father's a member. And so that was a big deal. But that opened up the world for me to be a part of something a lot larger, which was the National Panhellenic Council. And so I became president of the National Panhellenic Council on campus. And so what that is the 9 historically Black fraternities and sororities. We have our own council, which was also a part of, at the time, we had a Universal Greek Council. So there are 3 councils on campus. You have Panhellenic, IFC, which is the Interfraternal Council, and then you have the National Panhellenic Council. Mm-hmm. And so all of us come together as one unified Greek council. And I was a representative for that. So I was in the larger Greek world as well as I was in my student government world. So I was kind of all over the place.
Well, and talk about your fraternity, and mm-hmm. I'm going to have it from this aspect. I don't think people appreciate or understand how important the Greek system in terms of fraternities and sororities are historically in the Black community as mm-hmm. opposed to your traditional college fraternities, which are more social, mm-hmm. because you're more social driven. So if you could explain that a little bit.
So I pledged Omega Psi Phi, which was founded at Howard University in 1911. So you're talking a really old historical organization. Best way that I can kind of preface it, so there are 9 historically Black fraternities and sororities, and our mantra is a little bit different, right? You know, we go to college, pledge it, and all of a sudden you graduate, and it's, I enjoyed my time in being in the college there.
And that's the way it was for someone like me.
Right, yeah, it's a lifelong commitment for us. And so even to the point to where, like, now I'm the graduate chapter president. We take members who, I went to college, I graduated, I have my degrees, and now I'm in society as a man doing great work. But I see what Omega's doing, and I want to be a part of it. So we even initiate members into the fraternity who are older. A few years back, my pastor became a member of my fraternity in 2020. And so, it's one of those things to where, it's a lifelong commitment, but we dedicate our lives to serving the community. And so we have 4 cardinal principles: manhood, scholarship, perseverance, and uplift. The idea here is that, those are the things that should be able to push a man to be, valuable to society. But yeah, it's a for me, it's very important because if you look at Black history and you open up a history book and look at those men who, did things that were great to advance society, they're probably a member of one of our Greek letter organizations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Primarily Omega, but yeah, it's some other people out there too that did great things.
But to your point, you look at people who have done things across history and a lot of not just what they did, but a lot of what they're involved giving back civically.
Yes.
Doing things for their community, selfless type things.
Selfless service.
So as an Omega now, I'm going to say an adult, you're an adult in college, but as you get out of school and all, you're a big service organization to a great degree, aren't you? In whatever community you're in.
Mm-hmm. And whatever communities we're in, we like to say, if you open up a who's who book of who's in society doing great work for the betterment of humanity, chances are you're going to see one of our names there, right? That's the way that it should be. And so back to that, manhood, scholarship, perseverance, it's a reason why the last one of those things is uplift, right? We want to make sure that we're men who are in society doing great work, want to make sure that the scholarship piece is not getting a scholarship and going to college. It's you never stop learning. The perseverance piece is literally you're going to come up against obstacles. Well, we're either going to go over them, under them, around them, or move them out the way, right? And then once you've done that, what are we going to do to make sure that people who don't have those, don't have the things necessary in life to be successful, get those. So yes, service is a big part of what we do. I have a chapter meeting tonight. The things that we're going to discuss are, all right, what are we doing in the community? How are we doing it? How are we more effective? How are we going to help move the needle for the community?
It seems like both your parents and then the fraternity experience really molded the way you look at contributing to society.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah. So you're at UTC. You've joined the clubs. You've joined Omega. You've got that balance. I think you need to go on with life. What'd you major in? And what'd you get your degree in?
Human Services Management.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I had an idea of what I wanted to do. I was in ROTC. I was like, I'm going to join the Army. I'm going to become an officer, and I'm going to go to the Medical Service Corps. I took a internship with the Tennessee Hospital Association, and it was wonderful. It was known as the Agenda 21 program. And it was all designed to put people like me into a hospital setting to understand what a hospital administrator does. And somehow or another, I opted to not do the Masters of Health Administration plan that I wanted to do. I wanted to go to Georgia State, but I opted to stay here at UTC, still in love with UTC. There might have been a woman involved in that decision at the time.
May or may not have been.
It may or may not have been. And but I opted to stay here at UTC, and I ended up getting a master's in public administration. And as fate would have it, ended up working in the school system, and still had a desire to serve. Didn't quite serve in the hospital setting, making the big money as a hospital administrator, but I was able to serve young people, and I was able to kind of build out a pretty decent career working in the school buildings as a family partnership specialist. And eventually, when the Innovation Zone office opened up, I was tapped to go work at central office in that project.
So you get out of school and you go to work for Hamilton County Schools?
Yes.
And what was that first job?
Family partnership specialist.
And what did that entail?
Yeah, I like to say it was a catch-all job. Yeah. My job was to serve next to a principal, and the things that teachers in the classroom teaching. My job is to, pretty much be a liaison for the principal with the community, as well as to bring parents into the building, help to let the parents know what's going on, and then build projects around and build, programs around supporting parents so they can better support their children.
And how much of a challenge is that outside the school aspect of it? The not parental challenges, but the family challenges and just the life challenges a lot of students have that affect their learning.
Yeah, very much so. It was very challenging, but it was also a good learning experience for me and for a lot of the parents. What I was able to realize is that, we have our preconceived notions about, well, why doesn't this parent just participate in stuff? It's because they have a life.
Yeah.
Yes, the children are the most important thing in their life, but if they're struggling to survive, they're working 2 or 3 jobs. Okay, we can't say, well, you need to be here at 5 o'clock in the evening. Yeah, they get off work around 5, but then they go into their second job, or they have to take care of multiple different children. So understanding the needs of the parents, building programs that meet them where they are, and then figuring out ways to where we can be partners in the children's education was very enlightening to me, because it realized that, it can't be because I think I know what they need. No, I have to ask them, what do you need and how can I help?
What do you think the average Chattanoogan doesn't understand about the public school system that they should understand?
So many times we think that they have the solution. And a lot of times they're doing the best that they can with the resources they have. There are teachers there who care deeply. They just don't have everything they need to move the needle. Certain schools are still, to this day, more resourced than others. The factors that play into a child's education are not just if they show up to school every day. If a child shows up hungry, that affects them. Right? If we make decisions from an administrative standpoint or a legislative standpoint that remove simple things that we think should not be there for the children, well, there were children who needed that particular thing. I remember an opportunity, I had a conversation with a child. If their parents are just as involved, and this kid's in class sleep today, but nobody asked, well, why is this child in the classroom sleep? They might not understand that last night he just saw his mother get arrested. They might not understand that the child did not have an opportunity to sleep, or they might have been sleeping on the floor, or their situation was different. We have to look at the individual child and understand what they're going through in order to move the needle for that particular child. It's not a one size fits all approach. We cannot do, well, I grew up in a school system and they did this, this, and this, and I turned out fine. Yeah, that was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
The world has changed. And we can't be so afraid of change in our schools that we forget that if things don't change, they stagnate. If police cars were the same way they were 30 years ago, 40 years ago, they're ineffective. If fire trucks, were the same fire truck from 40, it's a reason why we see new things. We should be ashamed if we walk into a classroom and we feel real comfortable.
That's a great way to put it.
Right? My grandmother, I go back to being my grandmother's 90, master's degree educator. If she walks in the classroom and say, I don't know what's going on, we've done something right. If she says, okay, great. Yeah, that's the desk. They're in straight rows. There's a chalkboard. There is no technology. And all you got to do is, all right, now listen to me, lecture to you about, whatever. We have totally missed the mark.
So you're in the school system. You got promoted a couple times in the school system, right? Or
yes.
Took on different jobs. Talk about those, and then after leaving the school system.
So I shout out to Dr. Leandria Ware. She was the principal at Eastlake Academy. She was tapped to lead the innovation zone for Hamilton County Schools. I was just finishing my master's degree. She was like, hey, you coming with me? I went to central office. I knew nothing about being a school improvement officer or what that even meant, but I finished a master's in public administration, so I'm gonna go be a public administrator in the school system. And it was so great because not only did I learn a lot, but I was able to help, with what I knew, which was not the traditional educational route, right? We were running a $10.5 million, school improvement grant. Great. Educators are trained to educate. They're trained to teach. Well, I was a public, administration student. I got the governmental administration stuff under my belt. And so it was really, really great. I was able to serve, in that capacity, serving 5 underperforming schools in Hamilton County. We were able to move the needle. And in around 2015, an opportunity came up for me to lead the Bethlehem Center. Once again, to this day, I always joke with my former board members about why in the world did y'all pick me out of everybody who applied? Like this 27-year-old who,
it's a young age to do that.
Yeah, young age to do it. 20, I might have been a little older. Might have been about 29-ish, right?
Well, then it makes all the sense in the world.
Right. But, it's 27, 28, 29-year-old. Why did you pick me? And I was like, they asked me, they told me, well, in the interview, you made it seem like you would try and that you would do whatever was necessary to actually make the dream happen. And I was like, yeah, isn't that what you're supposed to do?
Yeah.
And that's what I did. Went to the Bethlehem Center. I followed up behind a phenomenal leader, which was Lerone Jennings, who was there for years. And, took this, at that time, 95-year-old organization.
And explain what the organization does.
So the Bethlehem Center is a organization that serves youth and families in the South Chattanooga area. And so, we do that through education. I did that there, but they do that through education, leadership, and spiritual development. So on one end of the spectrum, it's all about how do we help young people from an academic perspective, but also give them, access to the gospel. On the other end, how do we take adults and give them the resources they need to be successful in community? I mean, we started a farm. As I was leaving, we had built out a new program there to support undocumented, unaccompanied minors through the federal government. So it wasn't like some separate. No, we were working with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So we were all across the board supporting our community and in a way that was needed. I mean, we talk about how South Chattanooga was an extremely under-resourced community, but we were able to grow the organization. When I got there, we were around $600,000 a year outfit, so not bad for a nonprofit, but we weren't rolling in the dough. And then as of 2025 or so, we had around a $3 million budget. Now, a lot of that was federal money. A lot of that federal money doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we were able to really, truly move the needle to support the community.
And being particularly on the South Side now with the development you see on the South Side, do you see that raising up that area?
Yes and no.
Okay.
And so I was on a call yesterday with a couple of foundations and people in town. And the question that was asked was, what are the things that you see that you feel will benefit Chattanooga, and what are the things that give you great pause? And I say it's the same thing. It's growth, right? Growth is a beautiful thing, but are we growing to the point where we're going to displace the very people that are in those communities? So on the South Side, and depending on who you talk to, where does the South Side start, right? For us, on 38th Street, that's the South Side.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk to other people, oh no, Main Street is the South Side. Main Street was never the South Side. It is now rebranded as the South Side. And, but at the same time, when we talk about growth, what happens when you grow so fast that it displaces the very people who've historically called this place home, who've had roots, planted here, but can no longer afford to live here. So, yes, do I see changes in the South Chattanooga community? Yes. Do I hope that it is going to be inclusive of the community that already existed there? That is where, I think the work still has to be done.
Well, and that's a great segue into your role at the Urban League, because it's larger, not just the South Side. If you can, how'd you get to the Urban League, and what do you see the mission as going forward, and what do you want to accomplish?
So, and to give a kind of a primer to who the Urban League is and what we do. So we are one of the 95 affiliates of the National Urban League. And so the Urban League of Greater Chattanooga is all about, like to say, economic opportunity for all. And so we recognize that in order for Chattanooga to be successful for those who are in our communities, they have to have access to the American dream. They have to have access to opportunity. They have to have access to and the right to a decent, well-paying job that they can raise a family with, right? And so what we're engaging ourselves in is how do we make sure that the community is prepared for that, right? Because if we bring in all these new jobs to Chattanooga, but yet we haven't trained the community members to take them, or they don't have the requisite level of education, or they don't have what they need to take the job, well, somebody else is going to take the job. I had a conversation with the city of Chattanooga the other day. That's what we've seen with all these new companies coming in, right? Well, if I'm a company, I'm going to hire somebody. But if I can't find the people in Chattanooga to take the job, I'm going to get them from somewhere else. And then we're going to move new people into Chattanooga. That's a beautiful thing. We want to see growth. We want to see more people move to Chattanooga, but not to the detriment of the very people who have been here. And so a lot of the work that we're engaging in now, I like to call it, I'm helping to build out an ecosystem of opportunity. So on one end, we would have educational opportunities for kindergarten through 8th grade. We have our LEAPS programming. It's purely academic. It's after school programming. We want to make sure that we educate kids. Right. At the same time, I have a program for our high school children, because a lot of these children need access to something post-secondary. But how do we prepare them to take that post-secondary opportunity, whether that's going to college, going to the military, going to a trade school, or starting their own business? On the other side of the equation, we know the great equalizer is entrepreneurship. We're in a town of Chattanooga, Tennessee, where the the Coca-Cola bottling company was started, where all of these great entrepreneurial ventures were started. We don't have to wait for a major corporation to give people jobs. I have to have a good idea. I have to be bankable, right? And then I have to go and create a company. Well, most people start companies based off of what? I have an idea. I like doing that thing. And so I start a company. But if we ever taught them, now this is how you file taxes. This is how you make sure that your profit and loss statement looks a certain way. This is your balance sheet. If they've never taken a business course,
how will they know?
How will they know? But yet they're a great entrepreneur. I use the example of a baker. If you're a baker, you bake stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't start a baking company because you want to sit there and run payroll. We teach those skills. Why? Because by teaching those skills, you can now kind of remove yourself a little bit. You can still do the fun stuff, go in and do some baking, but at the same time, now you can remove yourself and you can hire somebody to do these other things. Right? But you have to have the knowledge to do that. So we're engaging in creating that ecosystem of opportunity because we don't want people to get left behind. We want to ensure that the community members get access to those jobs and get access to the greater economic opportunity that exists. And then lastly, we have a lot of programs, but lastly, one of the great programs that I think is of benefit is the CSEP program. It's supported by the federal government. But it's literally for individuals 55 and over, because who hires 55 and 65-year-olds who may not have the computer skills that we think is innately given to, certain generations? If I use the example of a young lady who, she worked her entire career in the laundromat. Not laundromat, but in the dry cleaning business. If that was her career path, but she never put money aside for retirement, and then, the dry cleaning business is gone, where is she going to go get a job? who's going to take the time to retrain her. Well, we'll come in. We will provide the funding to fund that job through a company in town so that that person can have a job while you're training them, right? You get the employee to train. And then after you've trained them for about 12 months and they're a good employee, you hire them. But we'll cover the cost of that. And that's through another program that we hope does not get cut by the federal government.
Yeah. How has the Urban League responded to those governmental cuts? I'm familiar with public broadcasting and what they've had to do in their cuts, but it's across the board. So you've got I'd imagine a large percentage of your budget that was federal money, and all of a sudden it's not there. How do you respond?
A lot of prayer right now. But actually, it's a business model shift too. And so this is not something that, like you said, is not just the Urban League, but definitely across the Urban League affiliate movement. There are 95 of us. And I think at last numbers, we were counting 75% of all of the funds coming into the National Urban League's affiliate movement. 75% was state level, federal, and local government funding. So a significant portion of that was federal. So one of the things that we're doing is that we become more of your traditional style nonprofit again. We're back looking at the generosity of individuals. We are redesigning individual donor programs that, hey, whereas we would normally go write these big grants to the federal government, we would normally go to the major corporations and go to banks. Now we're saying, you know what, we need to take the PBS model and go with the viewer like you. Yeah. Right. We need to make sure that we can get support from those individuals who are philanthropic, understand the work that we do. And it involves us now changing our business models because, yes, we're a nonprofit organization. But if you know anything about nonprofits, you know, no profit, no mission. So we have to bring in revenue. We just don't give profits to, board members, people who own the company. No, we use that money to further serve the community.
Sounds like that pivot from relying on federal government, state government for funding really sets up well for you personally in terms of your relationship building and understanding how to bring people together.
Yes, and I think that's also kind of like with a timing thing. Yeah. By transitioning from the Bethlehem Center, one of the things that, the Bethlehem Center didn't get a lot of federal money. Right. Every dollar we received pretty much was either foundation-based or me talking to an individual and selling them on the mission that we're doing and how they should support us. And so, yes, it sets up well for us at the Urban League, but also I have to relearn how to do that for this particular organization because what we do is not the same as what the Bethlehem Center does. It looks similar, but also the constituencies that we connect with are different. At the Bethlehem Center, I was connected with churches. People give within the, in the religious context. I mean, giving is kind of innate. Trying to get people to support the ability to train other people to get a job. There are people who understand it, but the broader community, there's an education component to it that I have to engage more in to let people know how it benefits them to give to support these type of programs.
But along those lines, what you learned as a kid in high school and in state government and what your parents taught you about building and your great aunt building relationships, that's got to really, when you look back on it, you look back and go, I'm glad I learned that skill.
Oh yeah, you have to be able to talk to everybody, right? Yeah. I remember, what is it? You don't look up at a king or down on a peasant because everybody is equal, right?
That's a good line.
That is one of those things to where you have to look at everybody for who they are, what merit they have, right? And figure out how can I connect with this person? Where is that common ground, right? The beautiful part of the Urban League movement, we're quick to say, hey, we love the fact that we're nonpartisan. We connect with everybody because everybody has something to give, to play into how to better support the community as a whole. And yeah, that has stuck with me.
Yeah. I want to get to a couple things before we run out of time. But one of them is I want you to talk a little bit about what the average Chattanoogan doesn't know or appreciate about the Urban League.
Okay. The average Chattanoogan doesn't know the history or appreciate the history of the Urban League. I'm quick to tell people, first and foremost, we're a civil rights organization. But when people ask the question of, okay, what do you mean civil rights? What do you mean? Well, we're what rights are you fighting for, right? We're fighting for the right for everybody to have opportunity, right? We were started in the early 1900s. And the premise at the time and why the Urban League existed was so that when people go into those urban cities and moving from the South to the North, they need access to jobs, right? So when you think about the labor union, how everybody loves the labor unions because they were fighting for people to get access to jobs and, well-paying jobs, good jobs with, decent work hours so you're not working, 14-hour shifts. That same history and work is embodied in what we do. I like to say what people don't know is that the Urban League fights for you. And when we say fights for you and we say things like civil rights, that's not just, we're fighting for Black people. We're fighting for everybody, right? Because, and I don't like that phrase, what is it? Rising tides raise all ships. That is true. But the problem is sometimes when the rising tides rise, people drown, right? And so we want to make sure that what we're there to do is to ensure that everybody has access to opportunity. And so when the rising tides rise, we have life jackets for certain people is able to build bigger, greater ships, and everybody inside of the entire ecosystem is able to survive and thrive and live the American dream.
I could have led with this, but I wanted to hold off on this because I wanted you'd be able to tell your story a little bit more, but you've already been recognized as a leader in Chattanooga. You went through Leadership Chattanooga 2017. Times Free Press named you one of the 20 under 40 in 2017. Bethlehem Center was Nonprofit of the Year for DEI through the United Way. So Urban League got their guy. Yeah, in terms of that. There was one other question I was going to have about the Urban League, and I completely went blank on it. My apologies. Let me get to our last question, Reggie. But before I do, I want to remind our listeners who makes my morning cup possible, and that's a big thank you to our presenting sponsors, EPB and Rockpoint Bank. Get EPB fiber optics for the world's fastest community-wide internet, and Rockpoint Bank, your local banking partner, your business, your bank, your future. All right, here's the $1 million question, Reggie. What would you tell that 25-year-old Reggie Smith is important for a happy life?
The 25-year-old Reggie Smith was important to live more happy days than sad days, because sad days will come, but a happy life is literally having those happy days and find the happiness in every day. Even days where days are cloudy, there's still a sun out there. And so that's kind of what I live by now, that if I knew that then, I wouldn't have, went to sleep at some night saying, okay, wow, well, what did this go wrong, and reevaluate X, Y, and Z. No, it's good in every day. You just got to find it.
Yeah. So be more gratitude based.
Yeah, very much so. I think gratitude is extremely important to understand what you really have going on, right? I'd also tell 25-year-old Reggie, get up and go to the gym. Move more, eat better, but at the same time, find your wife. I figured out where to find her at, so go find her quicker. My life would have been a lot better if I'd been married to her a lot earlier. But at the same time,
I think we all fit that description.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is like finding that gratitude, right? If we wake up, woe is me every day. Okay, but 99 things went well. You mad about the one thing, and that's going to dominate your day? No.
Don't you think people find it a little difficult to make that switch, though? Because when you have something go bad, it's so easy to focus on what went wrong. Where, to your point, if you can focus on the good things, the gratitude, and that's a discipline.
Yeah, that is very much a discipline. And I'm struck by, I was listening to somebody, and it was, my wife bought me that Masterclass app. And so it was one man talking about how, when we talk about wealth, well, health is wealth, right?
Yep.
You have 99 problems until you get sick. When you get sick,
that's your only
problem. All right. What if we focused our attention on every day? You don't have to sit down. I do. I ran across a gentleman who his name is missing me right now. But when I was at the Bethlehem Center, we had these little gratitude journals that we would give to the kids, right? Write down 10 things that went well today. Don't worry about the thing that didn't. But what if we actually thought about the 99 good things? Then you realize, oh, you know what? I've had a better day, right? If you break it down to percentages, right? If I had 61% of my day go well. Okay, well then
That's a win.
that's a win.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you don't have to have 100% of things go great every single day, because statistically that's not going to happen.
No. That's great advice. And Reggie, I appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to us. It's good to get to know you better. And I think Chattanooga also needs to know you better, and Urban League's got its man.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to My Morning Cup, a podcast by Constant Media Advisors. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend. I release a new episode each week, so be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts.